Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever noticed how sometimes the name of a government policy causes a way bigger fight than the actual policy itself? We usually just write it off as, silly political drama. But what if the distraction is the entire point? Today we're going to look at how a super controversial name can be a brilliant and kind of sneaky political tool to hide what's really going on.
All right, take a look at this. This is the official name for a new rural employment program in India. It is a mouthful, right? I mean, it's almost comically long and complicated. It's meant to replace a very famous scheme that was named after Mahatma Gandhi. But believe it or not, the length isn't even the most interesting part of this story.
And that really gets us to the big question here, doesn't it? Why would a government give a new welfare program a name that seems like it was built in a lab to be provocative? It just seems backwards. But as we're about to see, there is a very, very clever strategy at play.
To really get the strategy, we have to look at how this ridiculously long name is officially shortened, because the key to the whole controversy and the entire political move is hidden right inside its acronym.
So check this out. It takes some serious linguistic gymnastics to get to this acronym. You take VB from Viksit Bharat, a G from guarantee, another G from Grameen, and then, and this is the important part, you have to very specifically cherry-pick the R, the A, and the M from Rozgar and Ajivika Mission to spell out Ram, as in Lord Ram, a central deity in Hinduism. This was absolutely not an accident. This is political branding by design.
So, as you can probably imagine, an official government acronym that invokes a major religious figure, well, it immediately kicked off a massive political and ideological firestorm. And that public fight, that was exactly what was supposed to happen.
And just like that, the debate split right down the middle. On one side, you had critics saying this was all about erasing a legacy, stripping Mahatma Gandhi's name from the country's biggest rural welfare scheme. On the other side, the government and its supporters framed it as inserting an ideology. They argued they were just fulfilling Gandhi's own vision of an ideal state, which he called Ram Raja. It created the perfect culture war battleground.
And this quote from MP Shashi Tharoor, it just hits the nail on the head. He basically points out that for Gandhi himself, these ideas were never in conflict with each other. So by naming the scheme this way, the government essentially manufactured a fight. They forced people to choose between Gandhi and Ram, where no choice ever existed before, all for political point.
So here is the crucial point. While the entire country was loudly arguing about Gandhi versus Ram, something way more important was happening quietly in the background. The fight over the name was the perfect cover for some really fundamental and, you could argue, pretty damaging changes to the policy itself. Because the real story of this whole thing isn't the name, not at all. The real story is what the fight over the name was designed to hide. 3 huge, significant changes that were just slipped into the fine print.
Okay, let's break this down. First, the actual guarantee of work gets weaker. The old scheme was demand-driven. That means if you asked for a job, the government was legally required to give you one. It was a right. The new one is supply-driven, which means the government decides how many jobs are available and can even hit pause on the whole program. Second, the funding gets totally flipped on its head. And third, control is pulled away from local villages and moved to a centralized digital system. Every single one of these is a massive shift.
But let's just focus on that funding point for a second, because it's the biggest one. Under the old system, the central government paid 100% of the wages for unskilled labor. 100%. Under this new scheme, the states are now on the hook for 40% of that bill. That is a massive financial burden that was just quietly passed from the national government down to the states, all while everyone was yelling about an acronym.
So when you put all the pieces together, the strategy becomes crystal clear. That controversial name, it did 3 things at once. 1, it fired up the ruling party's base with a powerful cultural symbol. 2, it backed opponents into a corner where they looked like they were arguing against Ram. And 3, the most important one, it was the perfect smokescreen to hide a major overhaul of the country's social safety net. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, wow, that's a pretty specific Indian political tactic. But it's not at all. This strategy of using controversial branding to distract people, to polarize them, and to control the story, it's straight out of a global political playbook.
Let's just look at a few other examples real quick. In the US, opponents used the term Obamacare to make a popular healthcare law toxic. You had polls where people said they supported the Affordable Care Act but hated Obamacare, which of course is the exact same law. Or think about the UK during the pandemic, with the catchy but kinda silly name Eat Out to Help Out. It totally downplayed the health risks. The pattern is always the same. The name itself becomes the story, for better or worse.
So what is the big takeaway from all of this? Well, there's actually a formal name for this political strategy. And once you know what it is, I promise you're going to start seeing it everywhere.
It's called the dead cat strategy. And the idea is pretty simple, if a little gruesome. Imagine you're in a debate and you're losing badly. So you metaphorically throw a dead cat on the table. Everyone is going to start shouting, "Oh my God, there's a dead cat on the table." No one is talking about the issue that was causing you trouble anymore. The shock of the new topic completely hijacks the conversation.
And that brings us right back to our main story. That emotional, divisive, and really loud fight over putting the name RAM in a government scheme, that's the dead cat on the table. The quiet, boring, but incredibly important detail about shifting 40% of the cost to state governments, that is the conversation they wanted to avoid. And honestly, the strategy worked perfectly.
So, I'm going to leave you with this question. The next time you see a headline about some ridiculously named government program that has everybody up in arms, what's going to be the first thing you look for? Are you going to focus on the name, or are you going to start digging for the real story they don't want you to see?